Welcome to the Green Wasp Removal YouTube channel. In this episode, we have part one of a brief series featuring a huge German Yellowjacket nest that was located in an inaccessible block foundation beneath the porch of a private residence. On September 15th, 2024, we continue training and mentoring the Manchester University Wasp survey team as we started an attrition collection from outside the foundation to starve out this nest and collect all the flying adult worker wasps for Venom Immunotherapy, or VIT. This very active Yellowjacket colony had several points of entry along the block wall foundation and thousands of wasps in it, which is typical for German Yellowjacket nests, or Vespula Germanica, which often have the largest populations of any wasp species we deal with locally here in Indiana, USA. In order to gain access to all of these different entries, we had to cut away some of the vegetation around the block wall so we had good, safe, ergonomic workspace. Then we taped over most of the entrances so that we could force them into one collection point. As you see here, they were very active on several sides, and we had to make sure that we directed them in the most efficient way possible for collection. We visited this property over several weeks until we had successfully collected everything this nest had to offer, and the colony ultimately died out. We'll show you the entire attrition collection process with regular and slow motion close-up footage of the wasps being collected, and we'll explain how we identify the two different varieties of German Yellowjackets in the field, whether xanthic or melanic, through specific coloration and physical traits on their body. And we'll clear up some of the mispronunciations and misinformation that the internet has offered up over the years regarding xanthic versus anthic versus melanic. For now, we'll take you back to September 14th when we first did the assessment on this nest, and we'll take you through the entire collection process in part one up to a certain point, and we'll upload additional parts of this series in the near future, so keep an eye out for those. In the meantime, we thank you for your support on this channel. It's always a pleasure to bring you content like this. If you enjoy what we show you, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment to let us know you're there. Enjoy the show. All right, it's September 14th, 2024. We're at a private residence, and we have between the block foundation and the outer board of a porch structure a Vespula Germanica nest. As you can see under here, they're coming through this hole underneath. So the nest is up inside the block wall, or it's in this structure underneath. If there's a crawl space or something behind the wall, it's probably in there. But it could be down in these blocks as well, in the cavities of the blocks. This will most likely be an attrition job done from the outside. So we found one deceased wasp outside the nest, so we didn't have to capture one to do a species ID. It's a German Yellowjacket, or Vespula Germanica. That's an invasive species here in North America that comes from Eurasia. They got established here, they believe, in the 60s and 70s, especially in the 80s. The way we do a quick field ID on these is we look at the pattern on their back. As you can see there, the first turgor, the first section of their abdomen, you can see an arrowhead-shaped pattern that looks like that red arrow. This is one of several identifiers for this species. Another one are these dot patterns on their back. The abdomen has multiple sort of separated dots that separate away from the bands, the black bands around their bodies. The dot pattern is called the xanthic pattern, which is translated to yellow, means mostly yellow. Xanthic is one of the two varieties we see a lot of Vespula Germanica. The other one's called melanic, which doesn't have the dots. It just has the black bands primarily across the abdomen. And melanic just means dark or black, so it has large, thick black bands. There's a lot of confusion on the internet regarding the word xanthic being pronounced as anthic. And the reason for that is this chart is floating around the internet. You may see this if you do some research on it. I'm not sure who the original author of this chart was, but it was in one source credited to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They did a great job with this chart. The only problem is down at the lower right, the two that you see for Vespula Germanica are xanthic and melanic. But there's a typo, and I'll show you what I mean. If you enlarge the image and just see the Germanica, You can see here that if you use this key for research and you're trying to figure out what your two Germanica types are, you're going to see a typo. So on the top it says Germanica, and on the bottom it says Anthic. If you look closely, you can see the typo is when they typeset this print, the X was left on the top line next to the word Germanica. That X was supposed to be down here next to the rest of the word Xanthic. So many researchers over the years have looked at this chart and erroneously believed that the word was Anthic because they didn't notice the typo where the X was simply left on the top line by accident. So we cleaned up this chart to show you what it was supposed to look like. This is what it was meant to be without the typo. So this represents the correct two types of Vespula germanica. Xanthic with an X in front, and melanic. Xanthic meaning mostly yellow, melanic meaning mostly black or dark. I hope that clears up some of the confusion out there if you hear anybody say, this is Vespula germanica, Anthic. What they mean is Xanthic. You got to give them a break. They did their research. They just found a piece of research that had a typo. It's pretty amazing how one little typo on one chart on the internet completely changed the way a lot of people look at this. So we were talking about the different ways you can identify Vespula germanica based on their body markings, and one of the ones that you see here is the uninterrupted solid yellow band along the side of their head. Different species that look very similar have a black mark in the middle of that band, and that helps you identify them against a Germanica species. But this species, Vespula germanica, both melanic and xanthic, have a solid yellow band along their face, as you see here. All right, with that cleared up, let's carry on with the rest of this removal. So now that we had done an assessment on this nest on the 14th of September, we came back the next day on September 15th to carry on the first day of attrition. So when we set up an attrition collection, what that means is we are taking the wasps out of a particular nest, but we can't reach the nest itself. We are just vacuuming them out of a structure usually from the outside. And we're collecting them as they fly into the nest and as they fly out of the nest. But we are not going to be able to remove the nest because we can't get to the nest. And so what we're doing is we're going to starve out the nest by collecting all of the foragers as they come in or out of the nest. In other words, they're the ones going out to get food, and if we capture them for venom immunotherapy, they'll eventually be used for allergy shots. They cannot feed the nest because we're interrupting their flight back to the nest. So they can hunt all day long, but they're going to end up in our collection device instead of feeding their larvae. And that will eventually starve out the nest. So the client can rest assured that over time, as we do the attrition collection, these wasps will starve out. That nest will die because it cannot be supported without food. But in the meantime, we'll come back every couple days, every week or so, whatever, until there's no more pupa being born on the nest, coming out as adult wasps from the metamorphosis from egg to larva to pupa to adult. There's thousands of wasps potentially inside the nest that are currently pupating, so we'll collect as many as are flying now, and then we'll come back and we'll do it again because round after round of pupating wasps are being born. Now the larvae who have not been able to pupate yet, they will die in the nest. So ultimately there will be no more pupation happening, and that's when the nest dies out because it can't get food and there's no more larvae able to pupate because they're not eating. So they can't go into pupation if they don't get protein. And larvae need a lot of protein to get into pupation. And then eventually they would weave a silk cap through this gel material that's in a gland in their mouths, and that gel material becomes silk thread that they weave over the top of their cell when they pupate, and most of that thread is actually made out of proteins. But if they're not eating, they can't do that and they die off. As you see here, we're just collecting all the foragers who would be delivering food to them. And you may notice there's a couple different entrances along the side. Eventually we had to tape some of them off. So we're using some loppers to just cut away access so that we have room to work in here. Everything that can snag the veil or anything that can rip the suit, we just cut that back a little bit. Safety and ergonomics is a huge part of this job, so we often have to tell clients and warn them We will have to make access points. We will have to change structures. We sometimes have to change vegetation in order to work safely and efficiently.
What we actually are seeing is two entrances, one right here under the corner and one over here in the seam of the brick or the seam of the block. So we're going to tape this one off. It's very busy, that one in back. So we're going to tape that off to force them to come through here where we can suck them up more efficiently. And that'll force them to come around the corner to this entrance where we can suck them up a little easier.
So just ergonomically, if you can work in a more open, comfortable space, that is absolutely the way to go. Make sure that when you're doing this type of work that you take care of your body and take care of your gear. Don't squeeze into a tiny little space behind a bush if you can cut the bush back. As you can see here, the tape we did on one part of this entry point was not enough. We realized they were getting around the tape all the way along the molding that had been put up above this block. There was also another entry underneath one of the other block seams. There was 2 or 3 points they were coming in from. You always want to try to limit the number of entrances and exits that a nest is using, because otherwise you're going to need 2 or 3 different vacuums. And we have done that at times, and we did this at this location a couple of times, but it's just generally easier and quicker to limit the entrances. That way you don't have to commit too many of your pieces of gear to one location. You can move them out to other locations that you're working simultaneously on the same day in different locations. For those of you considering starting a green wasp removal type business where you don't use toxins, you only use vacuum extraction, maybe you're going to sell your venom to the labs that create allergy shot products for people with venom allergy. If you're going to do any of this, try to have multiple vacuum systems available to yourself all the time. We have a minimum of 3 or 4 rigs, and we don't use them all the time. It depends on how many people you have out in the field at any given day, but it sure is handy when you need them. So as you see here, we try to set the vacuum rig back as far as we can from the actual collection point. The reason for that is that there's a vent on the actual vacuum motor, and that vent sucks the pheromone from the collection device right at the entry point all the way down the tube back to the main motor container and vent. So the pheromone comes out that vent, and all of the wasps will hover around that area where they smell their pheromone rather than coming back to your collection device at the entry point. So basically you just want to get that vent as far away from your entry point collection device as possible.
Good collection already in the bottle. There's thousands more out in the environment today.
This was a very big nest. We could tell by the amount of activity coming in and out of every entry there. This was a multi-thousands sized nest. And since we only had one rig here at this time on this date, you see here we're assessing the number of entries, and we're going to set up some more tape here. So right here we're just monitoring how much activity is happening from the area we've already taped, and it looks like there was enough happening there still that we had to go back in and retape some more of that molding area. The crack between the wood and the block was very active, and they were just going around the tape to get in. So we spent a little more time taping up more of that area. We also set up a shade tent that you see here. The white poles are part of the shade tent, and we use this routinely when it's hot weather outside and our vacuum device is in direct sun. It will overheat. Any machine that runs for hours at a time is going to overheat. In the direct sun, we have issues with our cameras overheating, our phones overheating, our vacuum devices overheating. So anything you can do to shade your gear and shade yourself is worth it. This is just a cheap little Walmart pop-up tent, and this thing works great. We highly recommend you get something like this if you're in the field a lot in static positions like this occasionally. So we just added more tape, and then we'd observe it again, add a little more tape, observe it again. Eventually you get to the point where you seal off everything except the one entry point where you have your collection device. Observation in real time is very important. You want to keep your systems working at maximum efficiency all the time. And so observing everything that's going on the whole time is really mandatory. You got to pay attention. Eventually, we had a couple members of the Manchester University Wasp survey team come out, and we rigged up a second vacuum here over on the side.
So today is September 15th, 2024, and Katie from the Manchester University Wasp survey team and Milo are here today to help us out with the Yellowjacket nest. We have quite a busy nest over here in the corner of this foundation, so we're going to set up this secondary vac on one of their entry points, and we'll keep moving with the other one that we have set up on the first entry point. All right, so we're going to set this up right over here. Walk right through the red tent, and that will position us about properly here. All right, so mine's working a side hole. This one's gonna work right here. So let's try to take the vac and bring it up so I can use it as a rack.
We've also got a stool in the car.
Yeah, that might help. But this looks pretty good too, that should be it. All right, let's fire yours up, see how it goes. Put it on the high setting.
High setting?
Yep. Yes. It's okay, I'm going to just say it might work like that. We've already got some of them inside the bottle. So here we're going to leave Milo on this site monitoring these two vacs while Katie and I go and do another inspection down the road. Thanks, Milo. All right, we have one collection bottle, it's pretty full, so Milo's going to cap it off here. And then we're going to go ahead and freeze these, and we'll come back with another bottle ready to go. All right, awesome. Thanks, Milo. That looks great. It's a good collection there of female workers for Venom Immunotherapy. Let's go ahead and cap yours off next right away, because we're going to have to go do an emergency job where a guy's got wasps right in his living space. So let's cap yours off now and save the battery.
So we had received a call at this point from an elderly gentleman who had wasps filling his garage, and it was difficult for him to get in and out of his house through the garage door that led into the home. This was a serious problem. He had a disabled wife who was in a wheelchair and was being brought in through that door as well, so we had to get over there right away. So we ended up breaking down the gear at this location for the day, and we came back on another day. And we'll show you more of the action from this location on a follow-up video. Part 2 of this little attrition collection series will come up online as soon as we have it ready for you. As always, we appreciate you riding along with us today. If you enjoy the content on our channel, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment to let us know you're there. Have a good one.